This is part 3 of the architecture of self-respect. In episode 1, we exposed the double standard. In episode 2, we rebuilt the foundation through disciplined action. Today, we're stepping into the final phase, the identity phase. This is where discipline transforms into principled action, where you stop acting to earn self-respect and start acting from it. This shift changes everything. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control, from Fitness to Flourishing. There's a moment in every personal transformation where the work becomes identity, where the effect becomes expression. It's no longer something you strive for. It's something that you are. It's the moment you stop forcing yourself to follow through. Following through is simply what you do. There's no doubt. There's no striving. It's just an accepted fact. You don't even think about it. It's similar to the way a baby becomes mobile. First comes crawling, then, months later, standing, then walking, then running. But something shifts along the way. At first, walking is all about the skill, learning balance, building confidence. But eventually, walking becomes less about how to move and more about where to go. Moving in a direction is simply accepted. It's a fact. That is the transformation from disciplined action to principled action. The question of trusting your own ability to follow through doesn't occur to you anymore. You just think about what you want to achieve. You might not make it. You might not get to where you want to go. But your ability to set an intention and your commitment to follow through doesn't even enter your mind as a question. Disciplined action is the mechanism that earns self-trust and self-respect. Principled action is the expression of that trust when it becomes an identity. Discipline says, I need to do this because it matters. Principled action says, I do this because this is what I do. It's who I am. Here's the nuance I want you to grasp. Discipline is cerebral. You think about doing it. In principled action, you wouldn't even verbalize the sentence, I do this because this is who I am, in your head. You just do it. It's who you are now. It's a shift from effort to embodiment. Here's another way to understand this. When you want a glass of water, you go get a glass of water. You don't think, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder what I need to do to get a glass of water. You just go get it. That is embodiment. That is the self-respect and self-trust you have when you reach the identity stage. When you act from self-respect, the internal negotiation disappears. The guilt disappears. The avoidance, the heaviness, the friction, that's all gone. You no longer fight yourself. You are fully aligned. And alignment is peace. You become someone whose word means something. Someone whose standards are real, whose identity is stable, who leads themselves from a place of respect. You don't think about it in these terms. I'm putting it into words, but it's just embodied in the way you move through the world. When you respect yourself, everything changes. Your decisions, your habits, relationships, boundaries, your momentum, your life trajectory. You don't negotiate with yourself. You just think, which direction do I want to move? And you move in that direction. Self-respect becomes the engine that drives you to the destinations you imagine for yourself. If I were to describe this as a journey, it looks like this. Start with awareness. You see the double standard. Then there's construction. you rebuild your self-trust. And then, finally, there's embodiment. You live from the identity. This is the architecture of what I call the non-negotiable mind. There's no negotiating. Things aren't an option because you don't think of yourself or what you desire in that way. People often say failure is not an option. This phrase is both true and not true. It depends entirely on your perspective. It's not true when you're considering the achievement of an external goal. Failure is always an option when external factors are involved. That we even draw our next breath depends on our body cooperating. It's not a given. At some point in our lives, we'll draw our last breath, no matter how much we might desire otherwise. It can be true that failure is not an option when you consider it from the perspective of your commitment to follow through, whatever the circumstances. You can honestly have 100% intention to achieve that external goal. In that case, you do not consider failure an option. That's the level of self-respect and self-trust you possess. In other words, you will absolutely follow through. So, from that perspective, failure is not an option because the only thing that can stop you from following through is your own choice to stop. And that simply doesn't occur to you when you embody the identity I am describing. It's like getting that glass of water. I don't sit and think, what could the failure option be here? What if the city shuts the water down? What if I get a cramp in my hamstring? I just go and get the water. Those other considerations don't occur to me. Why would I sit there and think about that? Both perspectives work. Yes, failure is always technically an option. But when you have that self-respect, that self-trust you've earned, and it becomes your identity, you don't think about failure. You just move. This is hard to describe because you have to experience it. It's not necessarily a continual state of mind either. It's something that takes maintenance. But this is the final phase, acting from that identity. Not forcing, not negotiating, not trying, acting from full alignment. There's an interesting paradox at the heart of all this. The destination isn't a place at which you arrive permanently. It's a way of moving through the world. Self-respect isn't a trophy you set on a shelf, done and dusted. It's the invisible architecture that shapes every choice you make when no one is watching. It's the quiet certainty that you will follow through. Not because you have to, but because that's simply what you do. This is where the talking stops and the living begins. You now have the complete architecture. You understand the double standard. You know what it takes to rebuild your self-respect through disciplined action. And you have an idea what it means to live with principled action, where your commitments aren't negotiated, they're simply expressed. But here's the thing. None of this matters until you experience it. Until you actually catch yourself following through without the internal battle. Until you realize you've stopped asking, can I? And start asking, which direction? That moment when you stop negotiating with yourself. When you stop the internal debate and simply find yourself acting consistent with your preferred self. That's the moment everything changes. Not when you understand it, when you live it. That's it for today. Catch you next time.